my channel. In today's video, we are going to make a custom holiday gift bag. So we're going to be using the supplies you see here, and I picked out a very large selection of holiday paper. This is all 12 by 12. This is all from Hobby Lobby. There's, I believe, 3 different paper pads there. One of them, they are actually all still available at Hobby Lobby. I've seen them all there still. This is some Dollar Tree ribbon. I'll be using several varieties as we go. These are my fabric scissors. I know that because I have a little ribbon tied to them, and they also say fabric in case, you missed it. Here's some glue. We're going to be using some paper scissors also. Again, if you missed it, they say paper on them. I think these are from We Are Memory Keepers, and I bought these forevers ago. We're going to be using a scoreboard, a We Are Memory Keepers Crocodile hole punch. We'll be using a scoring tool. This is one that I have had for probably 15 years, and this is one that I purchased from Dollar Tree. They are pretty much exactly the same. The metal nibs at the end are pretty much the same. We'll go ahead and use our Dollar Tree one today. We'll use a bone folder, and this EK Success scoring board actually comes with a scoring tool, but I don't particularly like it, so I use the metal ones that I showed you. So in order to make these bags, you need 2 12 by 12 sheets of paper. They need to match, not unless that doesn't matter to you. If you want the front to be one color and the back to be another color, that's cool, you do you. But I want them to match, so I'm going to make 3 score lines that are at 2.5 inches. If your paper has a direction, one of these score lines needs to be to where the top of your paper or the top of your pattern is to the left. So I've already made the 3 score lines that are going to be the bottom and the 2 sides. This score line is going to be the top of your bag. It'll give you this little fold over that's quite nice, give you some extra reinforcement for your handle. That is at 1 inch. You could make this however big you wanted, but I'm showing you here that if this paper had a pattern or direction to it, then your first 3 score lines need to be at 2.5 inches. And then your final score line needs to be at 1 inch, and that needs to be to where the top of your paper is to the left as you make that score line. So here again, if this was the top of my bag or the top of my pattern, that is the one that would be at 1 inch. So you've got 1 inch at the top, and then you've got a 2.5 inch score line on the other 3 sides. So the 2 sides and the bottom, what would be the bottom of your bag. I'm going to go through and I'm going to score all of these. I'm just going to fold it over and burnish with my bone folder here. You are going to do the exact same thing to both pieces of your paper. That is very, very important. Otherwise, your bag is not going to look right, and it's not going to go together right. So this final score line, which is the top of my bag, the 1 inch score line, fold the wrong way. You're going to repeat that to both sides of your paper. Again, that 1 inch score line, if you don't choose to have a handle, or your paper is super thick and you're not worried about it, or you're not going to put something that's very heavy inside, you don't have to have that 1 inch fold over. That's not important. I liked it. I'm going to be putting some handmade goodies to my kids' teachers in here. Well, I'm going to let them pick what they put in there, but it's all paper stuff, and paper gets heavy. So I chose to have a fold over here. Now we're going to do some cutting. This is where your papers are going to be different. So on one paper, you're going to cut this direction. So the top of your bag with that 1 inch fold over is at the top, and the 2.5 inch score line is closest to me, is closest to where you're cutting. And you're just going to snip up that score line, stopping at that first horizontal, and you're just going to make a little wedge. That's what you do to this first paper, okay? So the top of my bag is up there. I didn't touch that. This is my second piece of paper. Now, instead of cutting vertical, we're going to cut horizontal. It's easier for me if I turn my paper. So now I've got the 1-inch score line to my right and the 2.5-inch score line to my left. And I'm just going to, again, make a wedge. I'm cutting straight down what is now a vertical line, and I'm making a wedge, essentially getting rid of that score line. Okay, I didn't cut this side very straight, so I'm going to go in there and fix that. So now we're going to address that 1-inch fold over. So all I'm going to do is take some wet glue and apply it to this quote unquote flap. If you don't choose to have a handle, or you don't feel like you need to reinforce where your handle is going to go, then you can omit this step. You don't have to worry about this. Your bag doesn't have it. But if you're following this tutorial like it is, then your bag has this, and this is how you just glue it together. Again, I'm putting something in there that's fairly heavy, and so I wanted to give my handle a little extra sturdiness, and this is one way to accomplish that. If you wanted to, you could just make your bag taller. Your bag would be 1 inch taller, and you wouldn't have this handle, this fold over here, and that would be equally as beautiful. I wish I had patterned paper, or excuse me, double-sided patterned paper, because some of these, the white of the opposite side doesn't look quite right, but it wasn't a big enough deal that I was gonna stress about it. So clearly my patterns have changed. I made a boo-boo, and I didn't put the bag together quite right. So here I'm just showing you that I did the exact same things that I did on that previous one. I did all the same score lines, I did all the same cuts. But here's the difference. So here we're actually going to snip off one of these rectangles on each side of the same piece of paper. So don't cut a rectangle off of one piece and then cut the opposite rectangle off of the other piece of paper. You're going to cut both of these little squares. They're more of a square than rectangle. You're going to cut off each of these squares off of the same piece of paper. So you're going to have the top of the bag with your fold over. You're going to have a side flap, a bottom flap, and another side flap on one piece of paper. The other piece of paper you're going to leave as is. And this is just going to give you a better fold over to create the bottom of the bag. How I showed you before, you get some weird, like the bottom of the bag just does not look very clean and put together. So this is the way to do it. So I'm going to glue this bag together. So this is the one where we actually cut them to where they're vertical, I guess you could say. And I'm going to apply glue to the large flap, the large rectangle. And I'm going to make a huge mess here. I recommend not putting glue on these little outer flaps quite yet, but I didn't, so my glass board is absolutely covered in glue, but that's okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up the score lines. So the score line from one paper, horizontal score line from one sheet of cardstock, and this horizontal score line from the other, I'm going to make sure those are in a straight line. And then I'm going to make sure that my what is forming the bottom of my bag is not going to cross the score line. That's when I was flipping up that large flap there. I'm just making sure that the vertical score line does not cross over and impede the bag being able to fold up. I hope that makes sense. Then I'm just adhering glue to what are going to become the side flaps of the bag. I recommend if you are putting something heavy inside of this, that you actually cut off the flaps of the other piece of paper. So the ones that you made to where they were more vertical as opposed to horizontal. Because then your little rectangles will go in the bottom of your bag and add a little bit more stability there. So all I've done is add glue to what is going to become the side flap. And I am just making sure that the top of the bag is lining up well. If the bottom of the bag doesn't line up well, it's not a huge deal. You can always snip that off. Anything that overhangs, you can always take your scissors and snip that off. But the top of the bag, I feel, is more important to line up correctly. All I did was stick my hand in there and smooth that out and try to get good adherence. I know it's difficult to see because my hand is inside the bag at this point. We're just going to repeat that to the other side. If you have larger hands and you can't quite get your hand inside the bag, or you feel like you're about to rip your bag, just take a ruler and use that to kind of smooth things out and get yourself some better adherence. And we're just repeating this on both sides. So we're going to get this bag together, and you're going to have a front and a back. And you may say, Brandy, how do you tell the difference between your front and your back? Well, you're going to have a seam. So you're going to actually see the loose edge of your cardstock, and that is actually the back of your box. So this is the front of my box. That's one of my sides, and I'm kind of going over what is the seam right there. And so if I were to flip this up, that would be the back of the box. That is the back of the box because there is that seam right there where we glued the two papers together. So if you're going to add like a gift tag or something to it, then kind of be mindful of where you're gluing. So if your paper had a direction, like we mentioned in the beginning of the video, this is where I'm demonstrating your 1-inch score line needs to go to where the top of the pattern is to the left. And then all of your other score lines, your other two score lines, 3, at 2.5 are all the same. They're on the other 3 sides. I just wanted to show you that because I know I quite often struggle with patterns and I usually get them wrong. One of them is sideways, one of them is upside down. Story of my life. So I wanted to demonstrate if your paper has a pattern, your top of the score line is at the top of the paper. That's the 1 inch, and then your 2.5 are at the other 3 sides. So let's add some ribbon. So if you did make a bag that had a ribbon handle, this is how you would attach it, or this is how I attached it. So I actually have 2 separate handles. I know I've seen some videos where people have like one long string of ribbon, and I can't remember how they did that. So this was just what was easiest for me. I'm using my We Are Memory Keepers Big Bite, Crocodile, something. I'm a Big Bite. It's a Big Bite. And there is a larger hole and then a smaller hole, and I'm using the larger of the 2. And there's a little like measuring level arm that you can pull out, and each time you insert your paper, that is how far it'll go. And that is a really handy tool, so you don't have to eyeball absolutely everything. You just set that to where the depth that you want it, and then you don't have to worry about having to eyeball how far is it in and then how far is it down. These bags end up measuring, I believe it was, let me see here. Let me measure it for you. They measure 7 inches wide, about 8.5 inches tall, and about 2.5 inches deep. So I've made all of my holes. Now, if you wanted to be really specific on where your holes are going for your handles, you could always measure that. I just eyeballed it because I was lazy. I ended up doing like 15 of these bags, and so I wasn't going to sit there with a pencil and measure. Just not about that life. So I just eyeballed it. Like I said, this is some string from Dollar Tree. You can use whatever string, or if you have like baker's twine or jute or lace or seam binding ribbon, whatever you have on hand that you want to use, this will be perfect for your handles. And I'm just measuring about how long I want the handle to be, and then giving myself a little bit extra room to actually tie the knots. So I'm leaving the ribbon on the spool. That helps me from wasting so much ribbon. And then I go through and just tie a double knot in the back. I start from the front, pull the thread in, or the ribbon in through the front of the bag, and then I tie a double knot, and then I measure how long I want the handle to be, snip that off, leaving a little bit extra so I can tie the knot in the back, and then pull that through again through the front of the bag, tie a double knot, and there's my handle. And I'm going to repeat that on the other side. The only difference is that I want to make sure that I don't have one super long handle and one really short mini handle. So I kind of stick my hand through it to kind of give myself a better idea on just how much ribbon I had the first time. If you wanted to, you could just cut off, you could get an idea on how long you wanted your handle to be, and then just go ahead and cut all of those out. That probably would have been just as fast. I just chose to do it this way and keep it on the ribbon spool just because I wasn't sure exactly which ribbons I was going to use for which bags. Now, keep in mind, these bags are made for Christmas. These are going to be bags that my kids give to their teachers and their Sunday school teachers that'll have handmade gifts from me inside. But you can make these bags for anything. Just change out the pattern of the paper, and you can make them for a birthday. You can make them for Mother's Day, just because, I miss you, sorry, Father's Day, whatever. Just change out the pattern of the paper and you've got a custom bag fit for any occasion. So I'm just going to finish up this handle, and then you will see that we have handles on our bag. So that is all from me. I appreciate you stopping by, and I appreciate you spending time with me. I hope that you feel inspired and that you feel empowered to make some custom gift bags for people in your life and for this holiday season. I appreciate you stopping by and spending time with me, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye.